Well, hello, dear friends. I'm back in playing around with my garden sort of diary journal, and I have done this things a little bit back to front. I started doing some pages on the inside, but today I want to work on the cover. I don't know why, for some reason, I've been a little bit indecisive about it. I sort of had a picture in my head of what I wanted, but I couldn't find the materials to do it, so I have done that now. So a couple of things that I'm going to be doing. I have some cards and papers here which I've got. So I knew I wanted to have a little robin on the cover, and I had been looking for the right sort of image, and I found this card, funny enough, that my aunt had given me, and she'd recycled by sticking another card on top of the writing when she'd got it. So I have that little image that I want. I found this lovely small sort of scrapbooking paper, and I thought that that would be quite nice as a mount, and I've quite like those sort of very soft, gentle sweet pea slash kind of poppies that I got out of a Daphne's Diary magazine. So that's my thoughts for that. I do want to have a title for my book. So although these pieces of paper are fairly big for now, I'm going to probably cut them down. They're just what I had left over from the others. So maybe something along those sort of lines with a little gap. But I did feel I wanted to do something on the spine of the book so that I had a little bit more contrast with the texture. So let me just show you what I had in mind. This is a very, very fine piece of lawn. It was really old. I got it from the estate of my dear friend Glenda, who died unexpectedly, and I had dyed this with a little bit of tea, and I just like the colors of this together, and I like the contrast in the textures. So I'm going to be using some of this just to cover the spine to make it look as though I've got some bookbinder's tape or something there. I don't mind if the edge is raggedy, that's fine. I think that that will offer a nice contrast, and then I'll start layering that up. Okay, so that's the plan. And then I had covered this book, which is an old diary, in fabric, and I'm going to also glue the inside pages on the back and the front. I'm going to glue those down, and then I have something that I want to put on the inside. So let me get started. The first thing I'm going to start doing is to just cut this down to size, and then I'll show you how I'm going to glue it together. So I've turned my diary journal book sideways, and I'm just going to eyeball what I need. I want a very small little overlap here just to tuck in on the spine, and I'll have to trim some of that away. Let me just put it on here just to weight it down. That'll be a bit easier. And then I want about the same amount on the other side, so I can cut it down. So this is going to be slightly generous so that I don't end up having one of those situations where you think, oh, I could have done with another few millimeters. I'm just going to snip through this. And at one point I did quite a lot of dyeing of fabric. I used some black turtle beans, which gave the most glorious sort of purpley color. And I've used blueberries, dried blueberries. They were really quite successful. And I have used some different kinds of berry teas for dyeing fabric. So play around if you've got like a stained pillowcase or something. You can make a nice selection of fabric, especially if you've got little bits and pieces left over. So what I would not want here is to have any glue marks showing through. So I did buy the other day a lovely glue stick, which I was really happy with, which is the Scotch one, and that has actually been really nice and sticky, and I think I'm going to try that one first. So the first thing I'm going to do is just to fold this over, and I don't want that side facing outwards or that. I think I'll have that one facing outwards. So I'm going to fold this in half, and I'm just going to use my thumbnail just to make a crease. If you do quilting and things like that, we refer to this as a finger fold, because quite often when you're quilting and you need to make a mark, you're too lazy to get the iron out if it's just a small thing. So that's going to mark the center, and in order to do this quite evenly, I'm going to start by working on the spine of the book. So I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm going to rub this on. Now this is quite a nice sort of sticky glue, similar to Prit, but not, I don't know how to describe it. It's not sticky in the same way that Prit is, and I found it to be actually quite nice and strong. So I'm going to just make sure that this is looking wet and shiny, because that's an indication to me that the glue has covered the surface. And I'm just going slightly over the edges here, just to anchor this little part first and to be able to manipulate any bits of fabric that I need. I'm going to go over the edge slightly here because I want to just tuck in any of those loose ends. And now I'm going to take the center mark that I did with my finger fold and try and line this up as accurately as possible, making sure that it's flat. And because it is a fairly sort of dry glue as opposed to a wet glue like a liquid glue, I'm able to just manipulate it nicely. Now I can see whether I've got that on straight, and that's not too bad at all. I don't mind if it's not 100% straight. And I'm just going to snip off these loose threads here, just because when you're gluing they can actually be a bit annoying. I don't mind in the finished product if there are some loose threads, but I don't want them flapping around too much while I'm gluing this down. So now I'm just going to take this one side and peel it back ever so slightly, and then I'm going to apply glue on my fabric that's on the book already. So let's get that down. By tilting your fabric to the light, you will always be able to see where you've actually got glue and where you haven't, because if it's reflecting the light then you know that it's wet. So that's quite a good thing to remember. Right, so there we go. So I'm just going to use my finger just to press down really nicely. And I just want to wipe my hands on a towel that I've got here, because that will make it easier when I do the other side. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing on this side. Peel back my fabric slightly. Try not to go beyond where the fabric would lie, because otherwise you're going to have to wipe up a lot of the dry glue. Okay, so let's just do that strip for now and see how we're doing. I want to pull away from this crease so that I don't have a crease there other than the natural fold where the book spine curves. I'm going to run, what shall I use? I've just got a pencil at hand. Let's just do that to get it into that little groove. Rub it to the end. I could still do a little bit more on the edge here, but that gives me a good indication of how much glue to put on. There we go. There we go. Now I'm going to just use my scissors just to try and snip away some of this fabric. I'm going to cut down, I don't know if you can see that, I'm going to cut down, as you do a school book, just the fabric here so that I can turn it in a little bit. Might need other scissors. Let me grab some sharper ones. I hope these are my dressmaking ones and not my stencil ones. No, I picked up the stencil ones. I use similar scissors to cut stencils, and they're quite blunt by comparison to my dressmaking ones. Really should put a tag on them, shouldn't I? Makes life easier if things are labeled. Anyway, one of those things I'll put on my to-do list. So I'm going to just do the same here. I'm just going to make a little incision, and that's so that I can fold the fabric over. And then because this section here has quite a lot of little fluffy bits from when I put the first bit on, I'm going to be fairly generous with my, sorry, I say the first bit, the first fabric. I'm going to be fairly generous with my glue and just press that down really nice and neatly. So that goes on quite well on that side. I'm going to do the opposite end. So this side I've got a little bit more fabric, and I think I'm just going to trim that down to about half so that I'm not battling too much with a big fold over. Sorry, I think I've pulled this out of camera. There we go. Just trim that little corner. I'll do the same here. So it's always great to use what you have at home rather than going to buy a whole lot of new stuff, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm putting a generous amount of glue there and folding this over and tucking it down. If this glue is not sufficient to hold it, you can always go back and work with an Elmer's glue or something like that. Sorry, I'm losing a whole lot of stuff from the inside of my journal that is there ready for another day. Right, so I want to do the same here on these edges to be able to fold this fabric in. So I'm going to just curve that over, and that will be caught down by the page that I'm going to glue down next. And I'm going to do, oh, sorry, I haven't got enough space here. I'm going to glue this side down as well. How to get nice and sticky quickly, hey? Anyway, right, so I've just got these two top pieces to do, and then this is done. Sorry about my arm and line of the camera, but that can't be helped. And I'm going to do this side, and then I think for the gluing of the cover to the cover page, which is that first page on the inside, I'm just going to use the same glue stick simply because it's going to take less time to dry. So I'm going to start on the page itself rather than on the fabric one, because I think it's going to be a little bit easier to see where I'm applying the glue. There'll be less texture because it's not the fabric on the page. I want to make sure that I've got quite a lot on the inside area and also around these edges, so I get them nice and firmly stuck down. And then I'm just going to take my glue stick and run it up and down in case I've missed any spots. Right, and now I'm just going to gently from the middle hold the book up slightly, press the paper down. This page has already been gessoed, so it's ready to use, and glue that. So now I've got quite a nice neat inside cover here, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the back. Let me tuck my bits and things. I've got a really bad habit of putting stuff into pages where I think I'm going to work on it. That's what you're seeing falling out of the journal at the moment. Right, so I'm going to go from left to right to begin with, and then I'll do exactly the same that I did on the other one. Is just go from top to bottom, making sure that I've covered all the space. So I wanted to have this neutral kind of page on the inside cover because that will allow me to be able to decorate it in some way that I would find appropriate. And I did find something delightful in the latest Daphne's Diary, so I'll be sharing that with you shortly. Right, so let's just glue that and secure these pages. Now this page hasn't had gesso on yet because it's right at the end of the book. It will get gessoed in time, but I'm not ready to do it yet. Okay, I haven't put enough of my glue on this corner, so let's just run a little bit more. There we go, and a little bit here. That's perfect. So I'll just put a bit of weight on here and give that a bit of time to dry. So now we've got a nice looking cover, and we've got an inside page which we can work on. So for my inside page, in the latest Daphne's Diary, which is number two, I think. Well, anyway, it's the Easter edition. I'll link that below. Was quite a lot of stuff to do with sowing and harvesting, both vegetables and the flowers. And as it so happens, if I was to cut this poster in half, it would fit beautifully on the inside and cover and on the inside of the back cover. So I'm going to go ahead now and just cut this in half and then glue this in. So I've cut my poster down into two sections, one for the front and one for the back cover, but as I lay it on my page, I'm conscious that the background is very, very white. So I'm just going to use one of my little sponge brushes, and I'm going to use some vintage photo, and I'm just going to grunge up the edges here a little bit just to soften it so that it's not quite as stark. I know quite often when you are looking on camera at stuff that's being inked up like this. You can't always see the contrast in the color, but I will show you in a minute. I'll just do one half and then you can see it. I love the way it's picked up on the paper there where the gesso has not covered it completely, so there might be a few more spots like that. Those are always gems because you just get such interesting things happening. All right, let me just do a little bit more here, give it a bit more contrast. And I'm really just doing the edges, so it's almost as if, you know, you've been in the garden, you've taken your journal out, your hands are slightly dirty, and you've just picked up a little bit of dirt. So if you look at it like that, you will see just how much it's just softened that edge along here, as opposed to that side, which is quite bright. So I'm now going to just do the other side quickly, and this really doesn't take very long. If you don't have any of these little spongy brushes to be able to just ink up the edges, I have done a video on how you can make up your own just using the lid from a glue stick, and I will link that video down below. It's just one of those things, minor useless information, but something that could save you a few pounds until you actually can afford to buy some more. I know it is quite expensive to get all your kit together if you're starting out, and like me, moving countries, I had to start from the beginning again, so it's taken me a bit of time to gather my supplies because I gave everything that I had away, almost. I say almost because my inventory, when I was doing it with a shipping company that brought over a couple of boxes, they said to me, you've got the weirdest combination of stuff that they've ever done in terms of a shipping thing. And I said, why is that? She says, no, well, it's nothing to do with clothes and those sort of things, it's all to do with your craft stuff. And I said, yep, that's me. Not the normal person who does the normal things. Right, so I'm happier with that. That's more in keeping with what I want. So I'm going to now fold my paper in half. I'm going to put glue onto the one side, glue it down, and then do the other side. So I'll do that off camera simply just because it takes up a lot of space and I don't have much here. So I have glue on the one side, all nice and wet and shiny, and I'm going to just position it so that I have an equal amount of space between the top and the bottom of my book, like that. Starting from the inside, I'm just going to just rub my hand over the edge. Oh, look how nice that looks. Really nice. And I deliberately didn't ink around this edge because I felt it would just be a little bit too much. Now I'm going to actually fold over this page and do exactly the same thing. Sorry I go off camera sometimes, but I have a very tight filming area, and when I'm having to open big pages out, it's not so easy. Right, so just a generous layer of glue, especially around the edges, and make sure that you've got quite a bit along the spine so it doesn't pop up those sort of difficult areas, just to add glue into at a later stage. Right, up and down again, just to make sure that I've covered most of the spots, but you can usually see that. So again, starting from the middle, I'm just going to gently press that down, and then you want to just fold it up. Make sure that you've got rid of any wrinkles that you can see. Make sure that all the papers are in contact with each other. And I'm very pleased with that. I think that's come out beautifully. Now, at this point, I'm not going to glue down the back one, and I'll tell you why. Because I've just realized I haven't put any gesso on there. And I feel that I might want to just put a bit of maybe some fabric or something just to secure that edge. So that I'll glue in just a little bit later. And I'm going to move on now to concentrate on the images that are going to be part of my cover. So I cut down this little card at the bottom a little bit, and I fussy cut those, I don't know whether to call them roses or sweet peas, but whatever they are. And I've inked them up a little bit with the Distress ink, the Vintage Photo, just to sort of soften that white line around the edge. I quite like this positioning where it looks as though they're coming from behind something. So I'm going to just hold my finger on these flowers, put some glue on this side, and stick them onto the card, so to speak, so that when I come to glue the backing of this brown card down onto the base, that I've actually got the flowers in the correct positions. So let me explain to you what I mean by that. I'm just going to make sure I've got a little bit more under here. So now I can see where these stems go on the back. I can just generously put a bit of glue there and a little bit across the corner just to stick this one down. Come on. Use something pointy. Sometimes your fingers don't want to work. Right, so I'll just get that loosely secured. Now I'm going to go over the back of this image. Don't want that there. Just going to run my glue stick over this so that I'll be able to use this to stick down. And as I say, I find this glue stick, the Scotch one, to be really good and nice and strong, as opposed to some of the others just which have lifted over a period of time. So I'm going to glue all of this brown card. This is just a recycled card, but it's quite similar to that stuff you get on the inside of gift wrap rolls. And now I'm going to put a little bit of glue on these images that are sticking outside all the way around. And then, I must say I'm quite sticky already, but that's me. Now I'm going to carefully position this where I want it. So it is slightly off center to accommodate the flowers. And I'm going to press that down. And so now the flowers will stick flat, but they're coming forward, so that's good. Right, so for the title of the page, I'm just going to apply some glue. This is the inside of a wrapping roll, this particular piece. The other one wasn't. And they're very nice to actually use because it's a nice lightweight card, but it has that lovely feeling of it being recycled, and I thought quite appropriate for a garden thing. And just make sure that I've got enough adhesive in the corners. And if I tilt this to the light, you can see one or two spots that are a little bit patchy, so just add in a bit more glue before you put it down. And let's get this in the right place. And this one I'm going to more really center, just eyeballing it rather than measuring it. And then I know that I want to have this piece of paper here, so I'm just going to glue this. I'm going to rather pick it up than make a big mess. Do the edges first. Oopsie. So just making sure I just press the corners firmly down onto the glue stick. Having such fun at work now that the weather's warming up a little bit. We planted out some of our beans the other day in an A-frame, but we had this terrible problem with the mice and the rats that come in and dig up the peas, because they're after the little seeds, aren't they? And the runner beans, they do the same. So we tried to think of a way to outfox them. So we made an A-frame for them to climb up, and then we just took some pieces of pallet wood offcuts, and we've put wood all around our little seedlings in the A-frame so that the actual birds and things can't, the mice and the rats can't dig up around the seedlings, because we want to give them a fair chance to survive. Very happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this down, but I'm now going to switch over and I'm going to use my Elmer's glue to do this, because it's quite a large surface area and it's going to need quite a bit more glue, and the fabric is quite porous. So I'm not gluing right to the edge, because obviously as I press down it's going to squish sideways, but I do want to make sure that there is enough adhesive here to hold it without me having to come back and try and remedy something. I do like Elmer's glue, I really do. Funny enough, I couldn't ever find it in South Africa, and I've always seen on Pinterest how many things you can make with Elmer's glue, you know, the slimes and all that kind of stuff for grandchildren and small children, but I'm very happy to have it. I do find it's a really nice glue. So just maybe a dot towards the corners to hold them down. That will be enough. And I'm going to just flip this over and lay this in position. And I must say I'm really pleased with the color combinations here and how they've worked out. I'm glad I waited before doing the actual cover, and I know it's something I should have done right in the beginning, but I'm very happy with how this is turning out. Just need a little bit more in this corner here because the fabric underneath is just so porous. There we go. So I'll stick that down, and I'll just move this sideways to do this. Yeah, so as I was saying, we've planted out a lot of the runner beans that we had. We've got berry bushes waiting to go out. We've got blueberries, raspberries, black currants, and we've got strawberries which are already in the ground. And I bought some Cape gooseberry seedlings because I just find them to be absolutely delicious, and they don't have thorns, which for my work environment is great because I work with special needs adults. So I'm always looking to protect them from anything sharp and thorny. I might need to just put a bit more in the corners here. Right, so all I need to do now is just to go and make a title to go on here, and then I've more or less finished my cover. I'll be back in a minute. So what I have done here is I've just used some of these little typewriter stamp sets that I got. I think I got them from Shane or Temu. They were about £7 for a whole box, and they're really quite fun. And I wanted a nice sort of naive kind of feel, as if it hadn't been too planned out and too measured. So I did kind of measure it out, but I wanted it to be more random. So my type and my stamping are slightly irregular. I found this lovely little leaf image, and I think I'll be happy with that. So my last thing that I need to do now is just to put some glue on here and stick this down. Yeah, I must say I'm really excited about this upcoming growing season. The first couple of years that I've been here, we weren't allowed to grow too much in the early part of the year, which was very frustrating because when spring came we had nothing to plant out. So this year we've been carrying on right throughout the year, following things that are in date, and it's lovely. It's been fantastic. We've got a good seed stock to draw from. Right, so let's have a look and see what we've done today. We've done this for the front cover. We've put on this sort of binding bookbinder's tape on the side, which I love the contrast of those. A very similar color, but just the contrast. I've put inside the front and the back covers the gardening plan, and I have done the back. Well, I hope it hasn't stuck down here. I glued it and then I walked away, which is always a bit fatal. No, that's okay. So there we go. I put some masking tape on that spine that was just sort of drifting a little bit, and then I've inked up the edges with some of the little vintage photo. Alright, and then the journal so far was January, looking after the animals and getting things, food for them, starting to prepare things. We've moved on from there, just cleaning plant labels, emptying compost bins, making sure all our tools and things are clean, our pots are clean and ready for the growing season. And then we're left with a blank page. So what's next? Please join me next time. And if you have liked this video, please give it a thumbs up or consider subscribing, and then you'll get notifications when I post a new video. Thank you for joining me today. Bye for now.